Good day, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, January 25th, 2022, we are continuing our coverage of the ongoing crisis between Ukraine, Russia, and the West. What I want to look at right now is conflicting rhetoric coming out of media sources. So, on one hand, you have nation states such as Lithuania, Estonia. You have the United States, England, very quickly sending weapons to Ukraine. We continue to hear about the movement of forces by the Russian Federation along the border of Ukraine. Again, one of the if you listen to some of these news outlets, if you listen to some of the reports coming out of the U.S. Department of Defense (DoD) and even intelligence agencies coming out of the UK. Again, very, very large, massive buildup by the Russian military. Again, this map is indicative of the force construct and the force positioning prior to the onset of this crisis. So, again, this has changed rather significantly in terms of the deployment of forces. Many of these units across the Russian Federation allegedly have been deployed to both the border of Ukraine, Belarus, Crimea, what have you, basically repositioned from areas all the way from, in some cases, just several dozen miles from the North Korean border back over to, again, the Western theater of operations for Russia. Now, at the same time, we're seeing this and hearing this. This is the news that comes out of Ukraine. So this is, let's see here, Russian offensive now impossible physically. USDC secretary. So that's according to the Secretary of National Security and Defense Council of the Ukraine, and that's Oleski. Is that my saying is right? Danilov. I don't know. I really have trouble with some of these Russian names, and if I hear it, I'm good to go. But just pronouncing some of these is challenging for me, as well as some other areas too. But let's see let's see. According to the NSDS secretary, Russian full-scale offensive on Ukraine is off the table at the moment. We don't see any grounds for allegations of a imminent offensive against our country today. It would be impossible to pull this off even physically, the Secretary of National Security and Defense Council stressed. At the same time, the movement of Russian forces is really underway across Russian territory, Danilov confirmed. We are recording it, but there's nothing strange for us. It's a surprise for our foreign partners that they have finally seen that there are Russian troops there, that they are moving in a certain way. This whole thing has been developing since October 30th when the Washington Post released its report, Danilov recalled. Today, the NSDC secretary believes many nations are ready to support Ukraine by supplying them weapons to protect its territory. And then again, so this is coming out of Ukrainian officials that at least he believes or is stating the guy who's in charge of the defense posture of Ukraine, saying that a imminent invasion is not possible. So again, on one hand, we have Western media, not just Western, Western media, declaring that a operation by the Russian Federation could happen at any time, and then more actively seeing the movement of resources and troops and equipment to Ukraine, and the so-called alerting of U.S. Troops, 8,500 of which reportedly on alert. Not a very large force construct. And again, I think most of those forces would be looking at going to Romania, Poland, maybe Lithuania. But again, just the dual messaging. You watch CNN, and on one hand they're saying a operation is imminent, that in fact the Russians could be ready to launch a decapitation strike where they rapidly seize control of Kiev, and they then move to take control of the entire country. And this is now beyond what they were initially talking about in terms of just the eastern Ukraine. So again, be very, very careful in terms of the information that's coming out of U.S. mainstream media, and in terms of UK media, the UK is even worse. So the citizenry of the UK has had no faith in the integrity of its media for many decades now. Here in the United States, this has really kind of raised its ugly head in the last decade or so, where people really started discounting what the media was saying in the United States, and now they're just outright liars, like CNN, just a bunch of just far left liars. I mean, that's what they do. They lie about everything. So again, when you hear them talking about Ukraine and the possibility of this vast Russian operation. Now, again, we could wake up tomorrow and this is all proven correct. A lot of people are saying that there is preparatory work by the Russians to launch an operation into Ukraine. But again, it's very difficult for me, at least, knowing the relationship between certain elements of the Ukrainian government and senior elements of the American government now, i.e., Hunter Biden, and the vast amounts of loot he has obtained, and just the sheer lack of integrity that currently exists. I just don't know. And again, on one hand, we do get tons and tons of information about this Russian buildup, but then you have this Ukrainian head of national security, coming out and saying that there's not an operation that's imminent. So what is anyone to make of this? Even during the initial phases of the buildup, the Ukrainians initially came out and said, there's no buildup. We don't see anything out of the ordinary. And then that changed as the United States narrative was talking about what they were seeing. So again, obviously we're hearing about this, and we're possibly seeing it. Yeah, we can't deny the TikTok videos of Russian tanks on railways, possibly heading west. And some of these military sleuths have done a very good job of recording the movement of forces from other parts of Russia to the Ukrainian border. But again, on one hand, you hear an invasion is imminent from Russia. It could happen anytime. And on the other hand, you have this Ukrainian saying, no, not so much. So what is anybody to believe at this point? I just you can't believe anything until it actually happens. Is it going to happen again? I don't know. I wish I did know, but I don't think that we are going to see a full invasion of Ukraine, meaning all of Ukraine is seized by Russia. Again, the Ukrainian military that exists now is much different than the Ukrainian military that existed in 2014. And a lot more support and effort has been given to the Ukrainian military since the initial operations by Russia into Crimea and the eastern areas, the Donbass areas. So again, Ukrainian military is not a pushover. It is not going to be the same type of operation unless there is massive transfers of money by Russia to senior leaders of the Ukrainian military, and the Ukrainian military starts to switch sides and defects over to the Russians. But we're not really seeing that. We're seeing the Ukrainian military maintaining cohesion, and we're continuing to see an actual very large mobilization of the Ukrainian citizenry in terms of being deployed in these territorial defense forces. So the idea that we would see a Russian move on Kiev, possibly from Belarus, that's going to be tough. Again, uh, even moving down from Belarus towards Kiev, there are a lot of Ukrainian assets. There are a number of Ukrainian combat brigades now operating very close to Kiev, and I'll pull that up here real quick, and I'll talk about that. Give me a chance here to pull up my Ukrainian information, and again, we're talking multiple brigades of the Ukrainian armed forces that are going to be deployed, or are presently being deployed by the Ukrainian armed forces to defend Kiev. Go into ground forces, and let's see what we can find here. Structure. And what I'm looking at is predominantly just assets of the Ukrainian military that is assigned to the operational command in the north. And obviously, they break up. They have operational command west, north, south, and east. And within each of these areas, there are multiple brigades. Okay, so just the this is operational command north, and really kind of based in areas to the west, north, and just to the east of Kiev. So you're looking at the 1st Tank Brigade, and to my understanding, that unit, again, the 1st Tank Brigade of the Ukrainian military, is just based to the right of the Dnieper River, just to the north of Ukraine, and it operates in this area. 1st Tank Brigade. Then you have the 30th Separate Mechanized Brigade. Again, that is fairly close to Kiev and would be utilized in the defense of Kiev. You have the 58th Separate Motorized Infantry Brigade. You have the 61st Separate Yager Infantry Brigade. That's a fairly new unit that is designed to operate in the forests, in the spruce forests that are in the north of Ukraine, and the marshes in the north of Ukraine. You have the 26th Separate Artillery Brigade that is operational in the north as well. The 54th Separate Reconnaissance Battalion. Then obviously you have the territorial forces. You have the 112th Separate City of Kiev Territorial Defense Brigade. That's a cadre right now, but would obviously is expanding currently. You have the 114th Separate Kiev Oblast Territorial Defense Brigade. Again, that's cadre, but still deploying as we speak and taking volunteers. The 4th Separate Rifle Battalion, the 115th Separate Territorial Defense Brigade that would be utilized. You have multiple brigades that are stationed in the west that would also probably be moved to the both the Belarusian and within the vicinity of Kiev to prevent Kiev from actually falling. So some of those units that are operating in the west, in western Ukraine, in this area, that would be moved or have been moved to both either the eastern Donbass area or near Kiev. You have the 14th Separate Mechanized Brigade, the 24th Separate Mechanized Brigade, the 10th Separate Mountain Assault Brigade, the 128th Separate Mountain Assault Brigade, and the 44th Separate Artillery Brigade. And each one of these are equipped with roughly 3 infantry battalions and 1 tank battalion as well. Additionally, you have the Ukrainian National Guard, and there are at least 2 brigades of the National Guard assigned to within the vicinity of Kiev. Matter of fact, there's an operational brigade right in this area that contains 3 infantry battalions and a tank battalion. So the whole concept that the Russians are just going to move into Ukraine and just take Kiev in a matter of hours, I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I think it's going to be a pretty nasty, brutal fight. And again, not even sure this is actually going to happen at this point. Just too much weirdness is going on right now in terms of what I would say lack of credible information and information that conflicts at this point. I talked about the media utilizing the buildup near Yelna and Smolensk, and that's this unit right here, the 144th Mechanized Division. Yeah, the division exists. It's there. Its tanks are in motor pools. But the idea that this is setting on the Ukrainian border, not so much. Not right now, it's not. It hasn't been moved yet. So, again, just wanted to talk about that and just, I know there's a lot of anxiety about this and in certain circles. Even hope that conflict kicks off. Kind of strange dichotomy, but again, wouldn't be surprised if it happens. But again, would not be surprised at all if nothing happens at all. Have a good day, everybody.